Hello and welcome to UWO Now. I'm your host, Wendell Ray. UWO Now is the place where we talk to the students, staff, and faculty at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh about interesting and relevant topics. A statistic I heard recently led me to want to find out more about a particular subject, and that subject is mental health issues and young Americans specifically. The website psychiatrist.com tells readers, quote, "The younger generation has powered through a lot of upheaval in their short lives, but it's taken a toll on their mental health. A new survey finds that an astounding 42% of those born between 1990 and 2010, Generation Z, as we've been come to know them as, have been diagnosed with a mental health condition. What concerns Gen Z people, and how do they handle life when they're away from home, like on a college campus?" We'll talk about how college life has adapted these new changes and approaches to serving students now. And what are we doing to make these campuses more comfortable for students, more a welcoming environment, supportive environment? Here to talk to us more about that today are Leah Folks, who's the interim director of the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh Counseling Center, and Nathan A. Scott, who is the Associate Vice Chancellor for Campus Life. Thanks so much for coming by and talking to us today on UWO Now.
You bet. Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
So let's talk in general, Nathan, about what's happening on campuses and how your office and what you do tries to shape an environment for students that is inviting, is welcoming, and supportive. What are you doing, and what does campus life mean in terms of your job description and what you're supposed to do for students here at UWO?
Sure. So the four primary areas of campus life are residence life, so where the students live, dining, how they get their meals, Reeve Memorial Union, which is student involvement, student leadership, student programming, and then student recreation and wellness, which is overall well-being, physical well-being, and emotional, social well-being. So that kind of encompasses the campus life areas, which kind of fall into the basic needs category. Housing.
Yeah. So when you were on campus, at a campus, as a student, have you seen how things have changed, and you've had to provide this type of service or this type of a connection for students, or are they basically the same as when you were a student?
No, I think things have definitely changed. I think students now require a lot more outreach and effort. There's a group of students that are always going to find us. They're always going to be involved. They're naturally engaged with certain activities, whether that's athletics or social activities, clubs, organizations. But then there's another group of students that we have to be really intentional about finding ways to connect with them, get them engaged, make them feel like this is where they belong, like this is their campus and their university. So a lot of the things we do revolve around connection and belonging.
So who is that student? Is that student who just is not assertive, or is that some other person that I'm thinking about?
I think it's a combination of both. I think it partially leads into the conversation about mental health as a epidemic in our country. But I also think that, high school years were different than my high school years as well. And ultimately that's, the most recent experience that they have as young adults and transition to college from there. So what kind of things at the counseling center then, Leah, are you providing, and what does the counseling center do? Is it, how busy are you over there?
So we focus on really building skills in students so that they can cope with like the natural stress of life, right? And we also know that college is just a naturally stressful and difficult time, right? There's these kind of predictable times with midterms and finals and all those kinds of things where we know stress is going to come at you at a higher level. So we try to meet students where they're at, build some skills as far as how do you cope with stress, how do you tolerate the distress in life, how do you regulate your emotions, and yeah, so we kind of weave a whole lot of mindfulness in our services, a whole lot of skill building, and just that good interpersonal process healing work.
Now, how different is that than when you first started your position? Have you found yourself having to use different approaches, use different sort of opportunities or ways to service today's student? Has it always been the same? Or again, I'm asking that question, how have things changed for what you do?
Absolutely. So I've been here for 9 years. And over those 9 years, we've seen a huge increase in the intensity of the clinical concerns that students are coming to college with. I think that historically in higher ed, it was, kind of seen as, you work with students that are a little bit homesick or a little bit sad, or maybe they had a breakup, right? And we still have those things. And we also have a whole lot more suicidal crises.
You are noticing that?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. We see a lot of students that are feeling in crisis. We see a lot of students that have already participated in therapy before coming to campus. We see a lot of students that have already been prescribed medication for mental health concerns before they come to campus. And we see Oshkosh in general. So last year, so 2021-22 school year, we saw 13.8% of the student population. And so nationally, counseling centers see about 7 to 10% of student population. And so for the past 5 years, we've really been, at one point we were kind of double. We were about almost 14%, or over 14% of students. And so we're seeing a higher percentage of students at Oshkosh.
I was going to ask, is this not necessarily a UWO, a Wisconsin issue, but this is a national issue we're talking about?
Yes.
But you're saying that even still you were seeing a higher percentage here on campus of students that needed services.
Absolutely. So I think across the nation we're seeing an increase, and Oshkosh is still higher.
Is there any idea why? And not to, get you out of your lane, but is there any idea why we're needing to provide these types of services at an increasing rate?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's never just one easy answer, right?
Okay.
I think it's a combination of things. I think that this population, this generation, is more mental health aware. And they're more open to talking about it. They're more open to seeking and connecting with services, which is a good thing, compared to maybe somebody in my generation, where, I was a psychology major and I didn't know that I went to a Big Ten university. I didn't know we had a counseling center on campus,
Same here. I wasn't a psych major, but I went to a Big Ten school, and I didn't know either.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot more awareness in general, which is a nice protective factor.
Yeah, because maybe I did need to go see somebody and didn't even know it.
Exactly.
Or I didn't accept the fact that I might need to talk to somebody. So maybe it's just, like you said, there's more of an awareness.
Yes.
Could be part of it.
There's more of an awareness. And I think that, when we think about this generation, and especially the past several years, we're also seeing, I think, what was already an increase in mental health needs, and then having the impact of COVID on top of that, which has further complicated things. Like Nate talked about, the natural things that they were supposed to experience in high school, they didn't have the opportunity to do that. And social anxiety. So historically, like the past probably 5 years ago, anxiety took over depression as the number one thing that college counseling centers see. And then last year, social anxiety in particular took over compared to like overall general anxiety.
Okay.
So we're seeing that a ton as well, impacting students and their comfort level with interacting with peers, with being able to feel comfortable in the classroom, right? Thinking about being virtual for the past 2 years and then coming to campus and being in person, and everything that goes along with.
So anxiety and social anxiety.
Yes.
All right. I'm not going to act like everybody out there might know what you're talking about. So tell us, what are we talking about? Some things that make you anxious, or what's the difference? Social anxiety and just regular anxiety.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think social anxiety really relates to, or is more specific to, social interactions or social environments. So maybe, and for me, how I understand anxiety and how I try to explain it to people is what happens, generally we're pretty kind of intelligent people, right? And when we feel anxious about something, we tend to avoid it, right? So what happens is our world gets smaller and smaller, right? Our connections get smaller and smaller. And, Nate invites me to go out for pizza, and I'm like, like, that sounds great, but I'm anxious and I'm not going to go, right? So then I don't make that connection with Nate. So that's kind of how I think of, especially that social piece. Or imagine a student sitting in a classroom or a pit lecture, right? And the social anxiety thought bubbles start to pop up, right? And I think of that as like noise in someone, like the background noise, or like those popcorn thoughts that once one pops, then 10,000 start popping. And then I'm thinking about all the things, right? Thinking about the thoughts that other people might be having about me, or thinking about, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just kind of spirals.
It's just it spirals, and it doesn't go in a good way. And then I'm not attending to what I'm supposed to be paying attention to, right? And so then I get down on myself, and I can internalize that, right? And then I kind of feel like I kind of stink as a student.
I got you.
Yeah.
You're listening to UWO Now. I'm Wendell Ray, and we're talking today with Leah Folks, who's the interim director of the UW Oshkosh Counseling Center, and Nathan A. Scott, who's the associate vice chancellor for campus life at UWO. Talking about how campuses are making their grounds, their campuses, inviting places for students, and places where they can succeed, and meeting them where they are. And right now there's a lot of angst, there's anxiety, and there are issues related to mental health with the current generation of students that we have. That's just one thing, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But Nate, there's also other things that you're providing, not just counseling services, but there are other areas that have stepped up that you've had to find resources to meet the needs of students. Talk about some of the other areas on campus that you're having to deal with.
Right. So one of the most recent additions to student affairs was the addition of a team of staff members that we refer to as the campus navigators. And these staff members actually connect with the students from the time they apply to attend UW Oshkosh to the first day that they step on campus, all the way through their college career. So every student has a dedicated navigator that checks in on them. We have a software program that can allow us to send early alerts or ad hoc alerts from professors that basically inform the navigator that the student might be struggling, or can refer them to services that someone on campus feels would benefit their abilities to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and so there was obviously someone felt, okay, we need to do something from the time the student enrolls to whenever.
Right.
So what was it that we saw that made us to put this group of this team of navigators together?
I think ultimately it was our retention rates were dropping drastically. I mean, students weren't making it, some weren't making it past the 10-day drop rate, which is the day where we actually consider the number of students on campus our enrollment number.
Okay.
So the navigators have had a huge impact on that. I think that collectively as a campus, just the conversation and commitment to retain students has really become a priority, not just for admissions, not just for student affairs, but as a campus.
It's everybody's
job. Yeah. So everybody needs to play a role in making sure that students are successful, and the ability to have that personal touch with each incoming freshman is something that we take a lot of pride in. And it's new, so we don't have full perspective of the impact, but the retention numbers from fall to spring have increased significantly. So,
but I guess the point is that there was a need for it, that retention rates were suffering, and if students aren't making it past that one short window, it's something's going on.
Right.
So we got to figure out what's happening. So this was another indicator that we need to change our service that we provide, and try to help these students navigate the campus. So that's one interaction. What are some other things that you're doing, that you're seeing, that you have to provide a service for students?
So another one we've been doing for about 5 or 6 years now is it's called Titan Camp, and it's outdoor adventure orientation that takes place the week before school starts.
Okay.
And the program has evolved and shifted, and obviously missed a few years over the pandemic, but we track those students, and the students that participate in the program are retained at a much higher level than the average student. So,
and what's going on in this what is it?
Basically, they show up about a week before the first day of classes. They participate in a series of activities with staff members and faculty members on campus, and then we take them camping, hiking, rock climbing, kayaking, for 3 nights. And
I'd like to do that.
Yeah, well, you are formally invited.
That sounds fun.
I will keep that in mind.
Okay.
You're in.
Yeah.
You're in.
Right.
And it's a really good time. It's very intentional curriculum, I guess, and discussions around goal setting and engagement, and really encouraging them to get connected with someone or something on campus, because the research shows that students that get connected in the first 6 weeks have they're much more likely to succeed.
Is that difficult to do, to not force a connection, but to stress the need to connect with someone? I mean, you would think that if it's not a natural connection, that it wouldn't work. But I guess just providing the opportunities and making them understand the importance of connecting helps. Right,
yeah. Okay. And it is important. And I think it's met with reservations sometimes, but that at the end of that 3 nights in the outdoors, they've already connected with a group of 15 of their peers.
Okay.
And some really great faculty and staff members that are committed to being there, dedicating their time to really serve these students. So that's something we look forward to continuing growth with. We do Titan retreats now, which are 1-day events. It's kind of the second phase of that program. And then the long-term goal is to do a second-year program called Friction. We've run a pilot of it and took a group of students rock climbing out in Colorado, and similar things, but it was more focused around just the concept that any forward movement, any upward movement is going to require some sort of friction, and really teaching students about grit and resiliency and navigating challenging situations with the metaphor of rock climbing as the friction that we're talking about. So,
okay, so tell us a little bit about. I cut you off. So continue. Tell me a little bit more about what you were saying about that program.
Sure. So Mantra Health provides free telehealth, which is telecounseling, and telepsychiatry services for students. So they work as an extension of the counseling center. So we work really closely. We have access. We kind of have access to their records and things like that. If they're working with a student for counseling and they're experiencing a mental health crisis, Mantra will reach out to us and we try to connect with that student in person rather than through telehealth.
So who is at the other? So there's someone, if I am a student and I use this service, there's someone at the other end that I'm talking to.
Correct.
Who provides some sort of counseling service for me?
Yep, it's just counseling through
Okay.
virtual services.
All right.
Just like, so we ran our center for almost 2 years completely virtual. So it's meeting through a computer screen.
And
Okay.
they're all licensed counselors.
Yes, yep, and there's an identified team of 13 providers that are licensed counselors that are working with UW system students.
What's been, so I keep coming back to this. So there is an increased need.
Yes.
You are seeing more students who require this. It's not just, this is the latest thing. It's a necessary thing for our students. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, and so there's Mantra. Did you go
Yes.
into that? Tell us a little bit about.
Yes. So Mantra, so they're also providing telepsychiatry services. So with the telecounseling, if students or if students go on our website, they can self-refer to connect with a counselor.
Okay.
I think what's unique about Mantra is they have a diverse group of clinicians. So students can search or filter for a clinician by race or gender or sexual identity, things like that. So they can really find somebody that maybe looks like them or walks through life like them. So that's something that's really unique that Mantra is bringing. And with the whole access thing, they provide weekend and evening hours that we do not provide at the counseling center. And the telepsychiatry is also psychiatric nurse practitioners, because there is a very shortage, a significant shortage of psychiatric care across the nation. And so students that are seeking that do need a referral from either a counselor or a student health provider.
Okay.
So they can't self-refer to that, but they just need to meet with somebody on campus to
And
get
this
that
is
referral.
a phone app.
This is like a virtual, like a Zoom meeting.
Oh, so what I mean, I'm talking about you.
Oh,
You
Is this
is
sorry.
it's a website.
It's a website.
So it has mobile compatibility,
Okay.
but it's not an application
Okay.
at this time.
Okay. But the emphasis there is that a student can, on their own, do it if they think they
Right.
want a particular service or something like that. Okay. So let's talk about what's happening at the counseling center. So who are you helping on a daily basis? Are these people who are being referred to you or people who walk in?
Yeah, both. We get mostly, I would say the people who are referred to us are mostly students who are feeling in crisis. So the students who are walked over to us are walked over by faculty members or by their friends or their CAs, and they are either just concerned for their mental health or the student has made some kind of statement that they're not feeling safe with themselves, or they're just feeling in crisis for whatever, life situation that's going on. So we do have a referral form on our website, which was new this fall. And for me, something that's really cool that's kind of also right with all these trends of concerns that are increasing, we also have a lot of cool things that are happening as far as there's a much higher rate of students expressing concern for other students. Right. So like if
Good.
Nate's my roommate, I'm concerned about Nate. I'm going to reach out to the counseling center and see if someone can reach out to Nate because I'm concerned about him. So there's a huge uptick in that, which for me, I love to see that campus community of care and,
Yeah.
the Titans being there for each other, that kind of thing. So we're also seeing a big uptick in that.
That is a good thing because, they're going to see it probably quicker than anybody else. Maybe even
Exactly.
notice it before that individual does. So
Exactly.
to take a step is good that you have someone who's in your corner, even if you don't even realize it. So
Exactly.
that's a wonderful thing. And any idea when you're seeing these students, are they coming back? Do you're saying, encouraging them to keep in touch with you when they actually come to your counseling center, see them, and that's it? What's the
Yeah.
interaction like there?
Yeah, so when a student comes in and wants to connect with counseling services, so there's, several things that we do. So if we're seeing a student maybe and they're in crisis and they maybe need to be hospitalized or things like that, that's kind of a different lane, right? As far as we're connecting with their emergency, emergency contacts and things like that and getting them to the safe place that they need to be. But for students that are wanting to engage in counseling services, their first appointment, they're really kind of sitting down with a counselor and having a good conversation about, the counselor's trying to understand what's bringing you in at this time, right? What does the student want to see happen or change in their life? That they know that, this time they're busy college students, right? And we want that time to be beneficial and impactful in so many different ways. So they kind of start to come up with a plan at that first appointment. And the cool thing about the counseling center is that we do lots of things above and beyond individual counseling. And that's part of how we're able to meet the demands of the number of students that we see. So let's say a student comes in with anxiety, right? The number one thing that we see. Maybe we make up a plan where they're attending a weekly group where every week they learn a different skill on how to manage the experience of anxiety, right? So they're learning a skill and they're connecting with other students that also experience anxiety. So they're attending a group weekly. Maybe they're attending a Just Breathe appointment, right, to practice some mindfulness, some body awareness, that kind of thing. Maybe we also are connecting them with the Student Health Center to do a medication eval. So we kind of come up with that plan that's tailor-made for that student. And then we also put in individual counseling in there as well. So we kind of come up with that plan and the student agrees to it and we kind of go from there. And, regularly we kind of check in and have a good conversation about, do we have to change anything in our plan? How are things going? Are you seeing improvements? How so? That kind of thing.
Okay. So, Nate, so the counseling center, just one of the areas that we're using here at UWO to address the needs of our students. And I don't want to make it seem like students come here and they're just a mess. That's not the message we want to get out. Because college still is a great place to come. It can be a fun place to be, and a coming of age experience, and really a wonderful time for anybody who's here. But we've come to learn that we've got to have the support services for those who may need it and when they need it. And it looks like we're doing a pretty good job here of providing a holistic approach to that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So great. Thanks for coming by and talking to us today. A lot of good information. And it's good to hear that the students who are here are getting served and being provided the type of service and meeting the needs that they have. Because as we're learning, there are specific needs for this new group of students who we have on our campuses. So thanks very much for coming by and telling us what we have and for serving those students who are here at UWO.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for having us.
All right, that's all the time we're going to have on this episode of UWO Now. Remember to catch the latest episode of UWO Now on our website, and you can go to wrst.org and catch each episode, as well as your favorite podcasting platforms like Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, and you can also watch us on the UWO YouTube page. That's all the time we're going to have here today. Thanks very much for listening. Until the next time.